Okay, in this movie we're going to go over another important variation with multiple conditions in the conditional statement. So let's take a look at this statement. It says, if you flip the switch and the computer's plugged in, then the computer will turn on. Okay, so how do we interpret this? Well, we need to diagram it by putting the two elements that are in the sufficient part together and join them with and. So we have switch and plugged in the sufficient part, followed by an arrow, followed by turn on. So what this means is that the elements in the sufficient condition work together as a guarantee. Now, either one by itself could be found with a necessary condition, but having just one of the elements doesn't mean that the necessary condition has to follow. So you can't say that if you flip the switch, the computer will turn on, and that if you plug the computer in, it'll turn on. Obviously not. You need to do both. So, maybe we just know that you only flip the switch. The computer could turn on if it's plugged in, and likewise, if we only know that you plugged it in, maybe it'll turn on because someone else might flip the switch, but we don't know for sure. The way to know for sure is that both elements have to be true. There's no way that you can flip the switch and have the computer plugged in and the computer won't turn on. So, if the necessary condition isn't true, then either one of the two elements in the sufficient condition may be false, but not necessarily both of them. And that's why here in our diagram for our contrapositive, we'll flip the two around and we have turn on negated, but we no longer have to say that both the switch has to be off and the computer has to be unplugged. Either one of those is fine. So, if the two things together guarantee something, then when that something isn't true, it could be because either one of the two guarantees aren't true. Either because the switch isn't flipped or because it's not plugged in. So here, if the necessary condition isn't true, that means that the computer won't turn on. Well, that doesn't have to mean that if the computer doesn't turn on, that both the switch hasn't been flipped and the computer hasn't plugged in. Not having only one of those is enough to keep the computer from turning on. In general, when you have an and in the necessary condition, the and turns into an or in the contrapositive, because when two things together guarantee something, then not having that thing means that either one of those initial things is false. In this case, that either you didn't flip the switch or the computer is not plugged in. Okay, let's take a look at this conditional statement. It says, if neither Amber nor Sergio go to the concert, then Lulu will stay home. Okay, so how do we interpret this? Well, neither nor should be read as and, where the two elements are both negative. And that's why we have it up there as not Amber and not Sergio, arrow, Lulu home. Now, this variation can get a little tricky because it says nor, and that might cause you to translate it as or, but neither nor is and. Okay, so as with previous conditionals where and was in the sufficient condition, both of the elements work together as guarantees. In this case, that neither Amber nor Sergio are at the concert. Then if necessary condition isn't true, then either one of the elements in the sufficient condition may be false. So, it's not saying that if Amber didn't go to the concert, then Lulu is home, and that likewise it's true that if Sergio didn't go to the concert, then Lulu is home. It's not saying that. It's saying that both of them, both Amber and Sergio, have to not be at the concert in order for Lulu to stay home. And likewise, as we mentioned in the previous one, in the contrapositive, since we're switching and we're negating, we're making not Amber and not Sergio into the necessary condition, we switch the and into or, so that if Lulu is not home, then either Amber or Sergio went to the concert. So, like I said, here we're told that if neither Amber nor Sergio go to the concert, then Lulu will stay home. Well, what that means is that in order for Lulu to stay home, both Amber and Sergio don't go to the concert. Not just Amber or just Sergio. Neither means that you have to negate one and the other. So like I said, this is sometimes tricky because you don't see an and anywhere in the conditional, and you do see what looks like an or. But in fact, when you see the nor, you translate it into and you negate the elements. Everything else is the same as in the previous example. The and is in the sufficient condition, so both elements work together, and when negating for the contrapositive, don't forget to change the and to or. Lulu not staying at home, the sufficient condition, the contrapositive, means that either Amber went to the concert or Sergio went to the concert. Okay, let's take a look at this one. It says, if Khalid is on the fencing team, then he tried out for the fencing team and was accepted. Now, unlike in the previous example, in this one, we can think of it as two conditionals. So him being on the team means that he tried out and accepted. That means that if he's on the team, then he tried out. And it also means that if he's on the team, then he was accepted. The both elements in the necessary condition are requirements. If the sufficient condition is true, then both of the elements in the necessary condition have to be true. So you can make it into two conditionals. So if we find out that Khalid is on the fencing team, then we know immediately that he both tried out for the team and that he was accepted to it. So there's no way that he can be on the team if he didn't try out for it or if he wasn't accepted to it. Now, if the necessary condition isn't true, that means that either one of the two elements in it is false, but not necessarily both of them. So since both elements are requirements, you only need to have one requirement to be missing for the sufficient condition to be false. That's why in our contrapositive here, we have the and becomes an or when we negate the necessary condition and put it in the sufficient condition spot. For Khalid to be on the fencing team, he needs to meet the two requirements that he tried out for the team and was accepted. And he needs to not satisfy only one of the requirements in order to not be on the team. Because if he doesn't try out for the fencing team, then there's no way that he can be on it. And if he isn't accepted on the team, there's no way that he can be on it. So to recap, a conditional statement can have more than one element in the sufficient or more than one element in the necessary condition joined by and. When negating an and, you need to turn it into an or.